Live another life in another great book from the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith.
A Dictionary of Mutual Understanding is the latest tome that we're adding to the Richard and Judy Book Club bookshelves.
We hope you'll enjoy meeting Jackie Copleton. She's here to tell us about her book that details an earth-shattering moment in history.
It's August 1945. It's 3 days after the first atomic bomb that was ever dropped has destroyed Hiroshima, and now Nagasaki is coming in for the same treatment. Now, of course, Nagasaki, being the second city to be destroyed by an A-bomb, really isn't remembered in quite the same way as Hiroshima. And we have a situation where there's a mother, who's also a grandmother, is on the fringes of the explosion and somehow survives. But her daughter and grandson, who for reasons, quite dark reasons, to do with her, have journeyed to the centre of the epicenter of what is about to be the explosion, are evaporated by it. And yet what happens 30 years on?
Well, Amma, the heroine, the grandmother concerned who went through that appalling explosion, has moved to America. She is now living in Philadelphia, feeling enormous survivor's guilt, feeling despair in many ways because she's lost her daughter and her grandson. And one day, a horribly disfigured man knocks on her door. This scarred individual tells Amma that he is in fact her grandson. He was not killed in the explosion. He was obviously seriously maimed, but he was not killed, and he has now found her and is claiming to be her grandson. And at first, she finds that very hard to believe or understand. She'd always assumed everyone was dead. But he brings with him a whole box of, I think the author calls it a Pandora's box of secrets about their lives together in Japan that only someone very close to the family should know.
And what's fascinating about the book is, it's in the title actually, A Dictionary of Mutual Understanding. Each chapter is kicked off with an extract from a very, very old book written many, many decades ago to help British people understand the way the Japanese thought and behaved and spoke if they were going to live there. And it's delightfully dated, and yet in many ways things haven't changed at all. The levels of misunderstanding, mutual misunderstanding between Westerners and Japan are still almost as strong now as they were then, and that becomes very clear in the book. It's beautifully written. I thought that the passages concerning life in Nagasaki split seconds before the atomic bomb went off was hauntingly written, and frankly sent sort of shivers up my spine. Couldn't recommend it more. It's a wonderful book.
And so I was paying for a tin of mandarin oranges when a new light flooded our world. Those who dare to ask me how I survived Peak Dawn are rewarded with the same answer, a sweet tooth. My humour unnerves them. The truth is less glib. Nagasaki saved me. Its geography contained the power of the explosion to a third of the city, mostly the Urakami district and part of downtown.
Jackie, I guess you couldn't have written this if you hadn't lived in Nagasaki.
No, I mean, obviously Nagasaki wasn't really on my radar. I'd learnt about it at school, but it wasn't until I got there I appreciated its own unique history, and it's lovely too. There's so many beautiful parts of the city, and one of them is the Peace Park, which is in memory for all the victims of the bomb. And you walk around and school children just run up and give you peace postcards, and they've been written in English, and there's this real sense of them wanting to impart this message of peace.
It's funny, isn't it? Because, well, it's not funny at all, but I mean, Hiroshima is sort of on everyone's lips, if you like. I mean, everybody talks about the bomb in Hiroshima. Nagasaki, yes, I'd heard of it, but it doesn't have anything like the same emotional impact.
No, it has been referred to as the forgotten bomb, because all the attention goes to Hiroshima. In fact, I hear that Obama might be going there at the end of May, which will be the first time a sitting US president has done so. That's going to be an amazing thing. But yes, Nagasaki, but I think because it was the second city, there's been less focus on it. And also people say that it's the way that in the aftermath of the bombing, there's a saying that Hiroshima raged and Nagasaki prayed
Mm.
because of obviously there's a big Christian community there. And
Gosh.
Nagasaki was second, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Second,
Came
3 days
after.
later.
3 days later,
Yeah.
I love in the book these fantastic little vignettes that you sketch in the instants before the atomic bomb blew up in an instant. You have this sense of life being in freeze frame. You know, you have the prostitutes flashing their red knickers, the geishas flashing their red knickers under their gowns. You've got a child torturing an insect. You have these everyday split seconds of real life unfolding with nobody having the faintest idea of what's going to happen. Because it wasn't an air raid in the sense that sirens went off or you could hear the planes coming. This was almost like a drone attack. Nobody knew what was about to happen. And then what happened was instantaneous and unbelievable. And at the heart of the story, you have this woman who I think you call Amma in
yes, I do.
in
Yes,
short.
for ease. Yeah.
And she has a daughter and a granddaughter. And for reasons we won't give away here, they're in the worst part of the city it's possible to be when the bomb goes off. And that's to do with the mother's behaviour, the grandmother's behaviour. They should be shadows on the ground and no more. So how do you manage in the book, well, I know, but give as much as you can. How do you manage to get us to suspend our disbelief that this stranger walking out of the past could possibly be the grandson who must have been evaporated by the bomb?
Well, unfortunately, in some ways, there were survivors, and a lot of them didn't. I think the statistics are quite depressing about the amount of people who actually survived the bomb. But there were people who had just the most grievous and horrible of injuries who have survived and are still alive today, and actually are part of a peace movement, and they will go out to schools and they'll travel abroad and they'll spread this message of peace. So
it's just possible that he might have survived.
It's just if you've been protected in some way by the location of a building. A lot of, obviously because it was wartime, a lot of the schools had built air raid shelters.
Yes.
So a lot of the victims went there. And to be honest, a lot of them then died there. It became a gravesite as well. But some people...
So technically then, what you're saying is, and you've done your research on this, it was possible to be virtually standing next to somebody who became a shadow on the ground, and yet you didn't.
Yeah.
For a freak of physics.
A freak of just being by a wall or being shielded by a bit of furniture.
And what happened, I mean, in your book, Amma Moves to America, did a lot of people who were sort of born in Nagasaki after that, did they disperse?
Well, the reason I sent Amma to America was, I mean, why would you go to the place that basically bombed your city? Yeah. It seems a strange thing to do. It was kind of like it was almost an emotional reaction. She is so full of, I guess, self-loathing in a way.
What, survivor guilt?
Huge survivor guilt. Why have I survived? I should be the one that's dead. And she wants to go to the place where she basically can almost be reminded of that on a daily basis. And it's also, she wants to be somewhere that is not Japanese in any way. She wants to be somewhere really alien and really confusing. Probably the way when I first turned up in Nagasaki, everything confused me. It was 2 weeks before I found out where the supermarkets were. I didn't realise that they were all, because this was back in the 90s, and they were obviously quite advanced. They had supermarkets underneath the department stores, and this blew my mind at the time. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. So yeah, I survived her. So that kind of dislocation and constant confusion about the simplest of things like buying food, she wants to be lost in that. She wants to not have to think about Nagasaki.
Why were you in Nagasaki anyway? What were you doing there?
I was teaching English. I'd finished university, and I was randomly assigned to go to Nagasaki. So it was luck.
I've never been to Japan, but it does seem to be a fairly alien place.
Yes, it's. I mean, I don't know now if it's become more westernized. At the time when I was there, I think I had email, but I didn't really know how to use it. So you were very isolated. You'd maybe phone home, not that often, on the landline, which is a rare thing now. And everything, like I think my first day when I was walking to my school and I was drinking I was so dehydrated, I was drinking some juice, and I got to the school, and the first lesson I was told was, because the pupils had given me a lesson on cultural things to do, do's and don'ts, and one of them was don't drink in the street. And I thought, I've only been here an hour and I'm already like, my faux pas
Well, that's
all over the
interesting.
place.
That informs the title then, a lovely title for a book, A Dictionary of Mutual Understanding. And that actually comes from an English dictionary of Japanese culture, written quite some time ago, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So interestingly, actually, that this disconnect between Western culture, British culture, if you like, and Japanese culture continues to this day. I mean, we are still pretty much polar opposites in terms of what's acceptable behaviour and all the rest of it. How did you find, generally speaking, the people of Nagasaki regarded you as, one of the allies, the British, the Americans, who dropped the bomb? Do they blame us? Do they see, to some extent, they brought the catastrophe on their own heads with their own foreign wars? I mean, what's their take on it now?
I was reading, actually, I was reading some comments, actually, about Obama's potential visit to Hiroshima. And there was a man who, his mum's Japanese, but his dad's a US Marine. And he was saying that basically his Japanese family say, let it go. It happened. We have to move forward. So it's hard. It depends as well, which some peace campaigners say that really we may perhaps possibly it'd be helpful if America apologised, because then Japan would be forced to kind of look back at its own war record. Because at the moment there's this argument that because of the bombs, it can be very much justifiably so seen as the victim, but obviously Japan has its own pretty tough war record, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
fascinating. Okay, this one set in a place that you clearly struggled with for a while, but I guess did you end up loving it? Did you end up adoring Nagasaki?
I love it to bits. It just stayed with me in my head. It's a very interesting city because it was one of the first to open to the West for trade. When it first reopened in 1850, Nagasaki played a core part of the industrialisation of Japan. It's a lovely harbour surrounded by lovely green hills, kites flying everywhere, and shrines and temples and churches, these lovely European wooden buildings. It's really pretty.
Do you still go back? I mean, do you go back for a holiday, or?
I've never been back.
You've never been back?
And now I'm too scared to go back because I think if I go back, I'll go, why did I put that in the book? So it's that kind of...
Yeah. And what about, what this is your first book?
Yes.
Many congratulations.
Thank you.
But what next? I mean, are you already writing another one?
I had to be honest, because the research was quite difficult, having to read a lot of testimonies about what happened on August the 9th when the bomb was dropped. I was actually quite emotionally done in at the end, I took a break. And then I think second book fear set in. I was like, what do I do now? I was like, this is, because I didn't really expect to be, for example, sitting here today. So I've just had to have a word with myself and say, what an opportunity, get on with it.
Yeah.
We all have to do that. We do, really.
Well,
because writing's quite hard work, isn't it?
That's another thing, it's the actual physical act of sitting at your desk.
Well, if it's any comfort, I mean, we're very new to writing ourselves as well. And one of the authors in this particular series, the summer series, William Boyd, the wonderful, great William Boyd, said exactly the same thing. He said, as he approaches starting his next one, he thinks he can't do it. He thinks he's only as good as his last book and he'll never better that, so why bother? So I guess it's a kind of a universal thing.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jeffrey Archer.
Yeah, exactly. No.
And then you just churn them out.
And good for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a dictionary of mutual understanding. It's a beautifully written book with a wonderful conundrum at its core. Is this man who he says he is? Can he possibly be? And if he is, what does that say? And Jackie Copleton is the wonderful writer. And if you buy it from WHSmith, you will get at the rear of the book extra content. You will get a Q&A with the author, you'll get stuff about the author, you'll get stuff about the book and the roots of the book, and all sorts of other things as well. You don't get that if you buy it anywhere else, although you still get a damn fine book. Congratulations, it's a great piece of writing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So much more than your average book club. This is the Richard and Judy Book Club, exclusive to WHSmith.
I think like most writers, I have wanted to do so since I was a child, but I'm quite a late starter. It took me a lot of, I'd say, courage to pluck up to saying those words to myself, I want to write a book, and then to actually physically start doing it. And I kind of had to give myself almost permission to fail, because I felt initially quite self-conscious telling people I was writing a book because, what if nothing came of it? But also at the same time, I felt I had to really embrace the fact that this is something I'd wanted to do for many, many years. And time was passing. If I didn't actually start to do it, then I would wake up with potentially regret. When I met my agent, and I wasn't quite sure if he was going to take me on or not, and then at the end of a very quick meeting he said, I'm going to represent you. And it was stunned joy and surprise that because you write in a vacuum and you have no idea how your words will be received by others. So to have someone go, yes, I'd like to work with you with this, was just, I remember the joy of it. And I also remember when the publishing deal came through, I was hanging out my washing in my backyard. I was living in Newcastle at the time. And again, just the sun was shining. I was pegging up clothes. And I just thought, this is amazing. You've actually managed to get to this point. And it still surprises me. This is my first book. When I first thought about it actually going out into the world, I found it quite a scary, quite a vulnerable place to be. But then I just had to have a talk with myself and say, the book is its own creation. It's almost like a thing, like a person you have created that you send out into the world, and people will interact with that book as they want. Every reader will have a different reaction. And once I got used to that idea that it was no longer about me, it was the book itself as an entity, I found that freeing and quite exciting. That idea that, yes, every new reader will have a different reaction to the book. I actually have a favourite writing spot, and it overlooks Loch Long in Scotland. And I can't get to there very often, but when I do, I find it's just a place that's so peaceful. I look out to the water, there's heron fishing, there are seals playing in the water, and for me it's just so inspiring. It's a very calm place, and I find that I just churn out the words. But if I can't be somewhere as pleasant as that, I will find I don't like to be distracted. So I have admitted to people in the past I've written in a cupboard so I can actually get away from any distractions. I know I sound really strange, but I just read Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, and I was like, I need to have my own space to write. And my husband and I live in a one-bedroom flat in Glasgow, so the only space at the time was in our big hall cupboard. So I basically took out loads of his stuff, put in a little desk, and would write on the walls little plot points. And I just find it was like almost going into a womb in a way. And so, yes, a lot of the book was written next to coats and smelly shoes and old videos and boxes. I don't know, I think it was just going into that enclosed space really helped me concentrate.
Seeing your books on the bookshelves of Smiths is it's extraordinary because it's so familiar to everyone. So much a part of British High Street. I think it's an extraordinary thing to walk past and to see. There was a poster in the window in my local Smiths, and that was an extraordinary thing.
When I found out about the massive excitements of being in this Richard and Judy book club, I was telling my parents about it, and my husband chimed in to say to my dad, he said, it'll be in the window of all the WHSmiths in the country when it's its week. And my dad said, what, even in Falmouth? Which is where they live. So it is much appreciated in our family, and my husband and son are really looking forward to walking down Chiswick High Street and having a sconce in the window of our WHSmiths.
All writers have this sort of guilty secret. We all go into bookstores and we quietly walk along the aisle so we find our own books and say, just confirm that there are some there on the shelves. But when the book first comes out, you'll always go to WHSmith's on your high street and you'll find your book sitting there and have a little quiet smile to yourself and then slink out again.
More thrilling than it is embarrassing. So much so that I will actually go and stand next to a display and take a little selfie. So I can't be so embarrassed. But there is a moment when you don't want other people to see you swanning around your own books or moving them to other parts of the shop, which I'd never do. Nose grows.
It's still very rewarding and gratifying to walk into a bookstore and see my books there, because I'll never forget the frustration 30 years ago of trying to write my first novel. Still, when I walk in a bookstore now, I always look around. I always go find my books wherever they are, in London or Paris or Rome or New York, wherever I happen to be. I want to find my books, and it's still a whole lot of fun.
I'll never forget the first time I went on holiday after my first novel came out, sitting in the airport with all my friends. We were waiting to go on a big group holiday together, and walking past WHSmith and seeing my book there with all the big holiday reads and all my friends clustered round, cooing and getting terribly excited about it. It's an unbeatable thrill every single time.
It's so thrilling to see my book on the shelves at WHSmith's. I can't actually quite believe that is a thing that has happened for. I'm a debut writer. It's really is a dream come true. I'm kind of still staggered by it. I'm going to have lots of pictures of me in bookshelves. If you see a woman posing by bookshelves in WHSmith's, it will be me with my fingers up, looking joyous and happy.
There's a book for every mood in the Richard and Judy Book Club. Browse the back catalogue on whsmith.co.uk.
When we return, we'll be talking about a heartbreaking, harrowing, intensely moving, but actually an uplifting and warm read, The Last Act of Love.
The effect of having written it is beautiful, and possibly the thing I most like is when people tell me or write to me that it has helped them. That just makes me feel amazing.
So do come back here to meet Kathy Rensenbrink on the next episode of the podcast, exclusive to WHSmith.